Hello, hello, and welcome back to New You Wow Going Places podcast. I am Yvonne, your host, helping you have epic breakthroughs and celebrating achievements around the world. Today, we are most honored to be joined by Mia Bolden, six-figure women's empowerment business coach and motivational speaker. How are you today, Mia?
I am doing great. How are you today?
Doing fantastic. Again, super excited to have you come through for our listeners. And, we always get rocking and rolling with a little bit of an icebreaker. So, Can you tell us something interesting about yourself that most people do not know? A hidden gem.
Ooh, that you don't know. I'm such an open book. I tell you all the time. Well, a lot of people don't know that I also own a women's vertical pole fitness studio. So some people just see me as the empowerment business coach and the motivational speaker, and then they'll hear on the back and like, oh, you own a women's vertical pole studio? Like, no, I never knew that. So that could be one thing there.
Okay. How long have you owned it?
I've owned the studio now almost 8 years.
Fantastic.
I can't believe I'm saying that. Ooh, that just flew by. But yeah, almost 8 years.
Yeah, well, time flies when you're having fun. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
So speaking of time, we're going to take it back to the beginning. When were you first bitten by the entrepreneurial bug? Like, what led to your decision to follow through and become a business owner?
Well, I tell people, that's funny that you asked that. I had somebody actually ask me that the other day. She said, when did you know you were going to be an entrepreneur? And it just immediately, I was like, oh, around 11, 12 years old, kind of something that I've always known that I've wanted to do. But I will say the very first time that I stepped into being an entrepreneur, I call it being an entrepreneur, was when I started with Avon. That was like my very first, I'm working for myself. I have to go out here and do sales. If I don't do sales, I don't have any money, So I would say that was like my first little test of, you're in control. You have the power to make as much or as little as you want to make, things like that. So that was my first little bite, my first little taste that I had of being an entrepreneur. Wasn't all that successful, but I definitely tried.
Well, I was just about to say, how did it go? Because Avon opened the doors for so many women. My mom included.
They did.
Yeah. So what did you think of it? I mean, you said it wasn't that great.
No, it wasn't really that great, but I will tell you this, I realize it now, many moons later. It was because that wasn't my passion. I've never been, I'm not a makeup type of girl. I'm kind of like, what you see is what you get. I will, if I have an event or if I'm speaking on stage, I will do that. But just by nature, that wasn't my passion. Right. And I tell people all the time, if it's not your passion, you're not going to put your all into it. So even though I was kind of like doing the things, I wasn't excited about it. And I feel like that's where I didn't get the sales to really grow because I wasn't excited about it. I said, this is what I got. And it was kind of like, you either get it or you don't. Versus now, when I talk about empowerment and I talk about you turning your passion into a profit, like these are the things that fire me up, and I can talk about that all day long. So
beautiful.
So yeah.
Wonderful. So speaking of passion, how was it that you did unearth what your passion is? What was your journey like to finding that?
It was a journey. I will tell you that. So I will tell you where I had a few entrepreneurial ventures when I was in my 20s. I tell people in my 20s, I was off the chain. Oh, now that I'm thinking of this, another thing a lot of people don't know, but when I was in my 20s, I was doing everything from bartending, waiting tables, to hustling the streets. There was a point where I was selling drugs, and I always like to clarify this, not saying it makes it any better, but it was weed that and so I tell people all the time, like, I don't want you to think like I was out there like with the hardcore but so I was off the chain in my 20s, and I was, if you will, an entrepreneur when I was selling drugs too, because that's an entrepreneurial thing that you do. And I did an article and was interviewed, and the title of the article is what I learned from being a six-figure drug dealer. What skills did I learn being a six-figure drug dealer that turned over to me being the six-figure entrepreneur? Because I'm not advocating this to your listeners, but there were things that I learned along that journey. But I will say where I'm at now was when I turned 30. I'm 41 now. When I turned 30 years old, I was going through, that's when things really changed for me. I was in North Carolina, and my cousin, who I was getting the drugs from, and that's running the streets with, that circle, everybody started going to jail. And he is still this day, he's still in prison to this day. And I'm 41. This was 2009, 2000, and he's still in there now. So I was seeing all these things like, okay, no, people are going to jail. I was like, that is just not for me the way I'm set up. Jail was never that's not in my wheelhouse. I don't have time to do that. I went through a really bad breakup at that point in time in my life. So I had hit that bad breakup. My money was gone. I stopped selling drugs. I mean, I hit like this place where I had to make a decision. I made a decision to make that phone call I say that we all don't like to make, which I had to call my mom and say, Mom, I need to come back home. I'm in Florida, in Pensacola, Florida was where I was raised. She says you can come back home. So I moved back home, and I had hit a really bad rut at that point in my life. I'm the oldest sibling out of my siblings, but I was the only one who was at 30 years old. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was broke. I had to borrow gas money. I'll never forget. I had to borrow gas money from my little sister just to make it all the way here to Pensacola, Florida, because I was driving down. So when I say I was broke, I was broke.
Yeah.
My confidence was low. My self-esteem was low. I wasn't myself. So within that, I was like, okay, Mia, we've got to get it together, girlfriend. I had that come to Jesus moment, and I did what everybody else starts to do. It's like, okay, I had hit my heaviest weight as well. I got up to 300 pounds.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh, like we got to get it together. So I went to the gym, like most everybody else does, like, oh, I got to lose weight. Let's go to the gym. So I went to the gym, and it wasn't fun for me. I didn't enjoy it. Mindset block. Limiting belief, thinking everybody's looking at me, they're judging me, when really nobody's paying attention to you. It's just what we work up in our own head.
Yep.
And with that, I was like, I didn't want to go to the gym, but I knew when I stayed in North Carolina and Atlanta, they had burlesque studios, pole studios, things like that. And I was like, that would be fun. That's all I was thinking about. What can I do that's fun, that will build my self-confidence, make me feel good about myself, and I can work out at the same time?
Nice.
And so I decided to look for one here in the area, and they didn't have one. And I tell people all the time, I'm a hustler at heart. I've always had an entrepreneur. That's one thing I've always done. And I'm like, if these are bigger in other cities, I know I'm not the only one here that wants to work out, that wants to feel good about themselves, that wants to build up their confidence. And so longest story short, I started with a friend of mine. She was a certified Zumba instructor. I told her my idea. We started doing burlesque cardio. It blew up. I fell in love with yoga. Yeah, it got crazy. People were like, I didn't know my body could move like that. I feel so good about myself. And that's what I love, because women were starting to say, I feel good about myself. I didn't know my body could move like that. It's been years since I've done something like that. And I love that, because they were getting empowered. And that kind of sparked something in me that I had never really had before. I was like, like I'm empowering these women in a good way. I tell people all the time, I've finally always had that leadership type of spirit, but sometimes I was leading people into doing things they shouldn't have been doing. So for this to be able to empower women and then feel good about themselves. And so that's what we were doing there. And we just got bigger with that. I started coaching ladies within my studio before I even knew what coaching was. They would come to me and say, Mia, how did you lose your weight? How did you start smiling again? How did you find your passion to open up the studio? And I kind of would just tell them what I did. And they would come back and say, that worked. Thank you so much. I really appreciated that motivation. They'd come back into class next week. I'd say, did you make that call you were supposed to make? And they would be like, thank you for that accountability. I got whatever done. And then I had a colleague of mine. This was 2015, 16 at this point. My studio was open a couple years into that. And she said, have you ever thought about coaching? And I didn't know what coaching was. And when she told me what coaching was, I was like, well, I feel like that's what I've been doing with the ladies at the studio, and I didn't even know it.
Very nice.
And I got certified through coaching, and here I am.
Wow.
4 years later.
You dropped so many gems in there. And, one takeaway for me is the fact that it's when you're in your darkest hour that you have a decision. You can run and hide, ostrich with the head in the sand, or you can realize you're at the bottom anyway. The only way to go is up. And when you do it, make sure that you propel yourself higher. And the thing about it too is, it's like, if at the beginning of this process, how big did you think you were going to get? Did you think you'd be where you are right now?
Oh no, not at all. Not at all. I just, everything kind of happened in little increments. It
Yeah.
was like, I'm trying to work on myself and get my life right. And in that process, I saw an opportunity to help other ladies and see if that's something that they wanted. And I was just thinking of, let's just see if anybody else wants to take these classes, you know? And then that happened. And then from that, within the studio, students just started asking me for help. I started helping them at the studio. Then coaching was brought to me, and so I got certified in that. And then from coaching, I started doing speaking engagements. And
Nice.
then from speaking engagements, I started doing retreats. And then so everything just started. And that's what I tell people. The hardest thing is just kind of getting started and having the, once you get started and get out there and do the things, I have found in my life that it really, once you have the faith, and it's taken me a while to get here, but you kind of just follow it. It might not all happen like that, but it does. It kind of, one thing leads into the next. And I love to hear ladies' stories. I actually had a meeting with a good friend of mine this morning who came in, and she was kind of, long story short, she was telling me about her journey, and that's how it was. It's just kind of like those little steps that lead you into your greatness, but you just have to just keep going instead of, sometimes I would hit roadblocks. And I tell people this all the time. Now, don't think this journey was peaches and cream, because it was far from that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you, it was far from that. But what happens is, a lot of people, they have these little steps, and then they'll hit a block, and then they stop, and then they start going back down.
Mm.
And because I've kind of come from the background I've come through, and I've had many failures in my life, and I'm a little hard-headed, I tell people, I'm like one of those, I'll hit it and I'll just kind of keep going. And I just kind of don't stop. And it's like, all right, I fell on my butt. I cry about it. I whine about it. Jesus, why? And then I shake it off and I get back up and I just go for it again. And so that's what's kind of moved me into the direction is where I'm at right now.
Fabulous. Yeah, the key is not
Mm-hmm.
to ever, ever give up, never give in. And when you're describing those levels, it made me think, I always think about it like, no one sees the blood, sweat, and tears. No one knows what goes into success. So what you have to do is just take the imperfect action and do it anyway, because you never know what's going to come of it until you try. And for some reason, we live small. We put ourselves in these boxes and think, I'm not good enough. Why would I be able to do that? And all those crazy questions and accusations, if you can just tell them to shut up, like put them on pause and get out there and do it, every little thing you do is just going to get bigger. And like, you will amaze yourself. Like, people are going to be wondering, where did that come from? Well, the thing was, it was already in you. So I'm so glad that you did your thing. You went and found that passion. And that you're also just putting the message out there that the key is to find what makes you happy. And then to go ahead and couple that with finding a way to monetize it. Because it was brilliant that you're in the gym, you're feeling self-conscious, like we all do, and you realize, but I really, really liked when I did that, and I don't see it here. So when you see that opportunity and you provide a solution, we'll look at what it's done for you. That is beautiful. Very nice.
Absolutely. I believe that a lot of entrepreneurs, one thing is that they're problem solvers, and 9 times out of 10, they create their business. This is just what I've learned from being around entrepreneurs and speaking and just being around a lot of entrepreneurs, is they've taken a problem that they had.
Yep.
I'd say 8 out of 10 of it, they take a problem that they had and they found a solution, and then they just market it to other people. I know I'm not the only one that has this problem. And, and that's kind of, that's how that entrepreneurial journey, to me, it just starts there. And then, I tell people, once you, take those steps and you definitely serve. One of my favorite quotes I like to hear is, if you give enough people what they want, you'll get what you want. And that's what it was. I was just giving people what they wanted, was these fitness classes. They wanted to feel good. They wanted to be motivated. They wanted their confidence back. And so I just gave it to them. And then I just got back in return what I wanted, which was a bigger business, to be able to travel, to have this company, and that's the thing is I really feel a lot of people, they, and I talk about this a lot, is they chase the money And that, even when I was selling drugs, that's what I did, is I chased the money, and that's why it didn't work out for me, and it doesn't work out for a lot of people, and I realize that now.
Mm.
But when you truly chase your passion and what feels good to you, I always say the money will come, is the scripture. And I always say I'm not here to preach to anyone, but it's, where your heart is, your treasure is also. You follow your passion and what feels good, your treasure is going to be there. But we just do it the opposite way, or we don't even try at all. And that's where I feel like so many people, if I could tell your audience anything, is that just to listen to that intuition, or to listen to what's inside of you that's telling you, I should try that, or I really feel like I should listen to that, because that's for a reason. We're chasing that paycheck, and that's why we're at that job 8, 9, 12 hours a day, that we're miserable and our heads down, and we're back, we're still behind on bills, and we're still stressed out. We wonder why, because we're not doing what it is that we're supposed to be doing. So
And really, technically, what I had to come to terms with was when you're on that job, and nothing against
mm-hmm,
you, you have to do it for a time, and you're working towards the escape. But when you're on that
mm-hmm,
job, if you're not working for yourself, you're working for someone that did what you just described. There's
yeah,
someone that sat down and they thought, how do I solve a problem? How did I solve
mm-hmm,
it for me? And they present that solution. And the next thing you know, they have so much success, they own a corporation. So
mm-hmm,
the very thing that people run away from is what you are indeed supporting when you're punching the clock. If you do it
mm-hmm,
for someone else, why can't you do it for you? And so it's just the
absolutely,
element of stepping into your power and knowing that you can, but not until you try. So
yeah,
you mentioned that element of roadblocks, and one that all of us has been
mm-hmm,
facing is the pandemic. It's
mm-hmm.
heightened a lot of levels of fear and anxiety. And what have you found to be effective ways of coping with all these changes?
Well, I will tell you, and I'll give you some of the coping things that I had to do, but I get it. The pandemic has definitely, it shifted a lot of people. That's just what I want to use. I don't want to say it messed a lot. It just really just shifted a lot of what is going on in our life. I literally, quick story, my studio, my newest studio that I had just moved into this studio, the biggest one I had, 3,000 square feet, beautiful location, downtown Pensacola, Florida, everything that I wanted in the 7, almost 8 years that I was in business.
Mm.
Like, this is the one that I manifested that I wanted. I literally, my grand opening for this, and it took everything for me to get in here, because it was the biggest. I literally moved from a right at 900 square feet studio to a 3,000 square
Wow.
feet studio.
Uh-huh.
So it takes a whole lot to move into that. And we had our grand opening February the 1st, and we had to close down for the pandemic, like 3 weeks later after that,
Mm.
in March.
Wow.
And I was like, shut the front door. So of course, like everybody else, I had that shift, and I was like, whoo, now, what am I going to do here now? And I tell people, one of my things, and I, just like I mentioned earlier, not advocating it for anybody, but I am just I've always been a hustler, and I just would always try to figure things out. Like, instead of it just being like, okay, I'm shut down, we're just done, it was like, what do I kind of have to work with? And I tell people, especially if anybody in your audience can relate to being a hustler, can relate to the struggle, you got those skills in you. You just got to use those.
Yeah.
You got to tap into that.
Yeah.
Don't let, you got to tap into those things. So I was like, all right, what do I have around me? How can I make some money? It literally, like, what are my skills? Like, I literally was going back into that, into that mentality of, instead of like, and I tell people, instead of like saying like, for me, or I don't know, or it's not going to work out, say, how can I make this work? How can I, with this pandemic happening, or me having to shut down, how can I keep my business running? And it'll just change your mindset and the way you think, and you'll start, these different ideas will come in. And so that would be my first thing. Instead of just going for the straight freak out, just whatever challenge you have facing you right now, instead of like really looking at it as like a failure or a defeat, look at it as like, how can I? It's a challenge. It's life.
Opportunity.
This is the biggest thing that we've ever had to face. Don't get
Yeah.
me wrong,
Yeah.
but life just happens. Just like you said, you can absolutely look at it as an opportunity. And so that's what I did. Look at it as how. Surround yourself with, and even with this, surround yourself with people that are not complaining about the pandemic, who are not worried about what's going on. And I do, there are even family members of mine that I literally minimize the time I spend with them, because all they do is watch CNN. All they want to do is talk about the pandemic. All they want to do is talk about the politics. And I can't change that. You know what I mean? And if
Mm-hmm.
you, and some people, they'll listen to that all the time, and that takes on anxiety,
Yes.
nervousness. It's in their mindset subconsciously, that's sinking into them. So all they're looking at all day is like struggle and lack and the world ending. This ain't right, and no, you got to get out of that. So that would be my second thing, is to definitely get away from people that are talking about that, and surround your. There's a lot of us. There's still a lot of fire starters out here. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of us that's still out here looking at the sun in this, that are looking at that, that rainbow, and like, okay, we still got some things, but there's still time. You
Yeah.
woke up this morning, it's a beautiful day. There's a lot of us out here. So surrounding yourself with those type of people, and just speaking up would be my third thing. I could go on, but that would be my third thing. Is if you are really, if you are really in anxiety, if you're really very fearful, don't hold that inside you. I always tell people, talk to somebody about it. The shame will shrink when it's shared out loud.
Yeah.
So sometimes if you share that shame, if you share that doubt, you'll be able to energetically just release that. And you're like, phew, you'll just feel different.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, the person you're going to share it with is going to be like, girlfriend, I can relate to that. And
Yeah.
this is how we're going to get through this. So don't let that just sit in there. Find you somebody to talk to about it. Those would be my
Beautiful.
three.
No, phenomenal advice, all strong tips. And it's
Mm-hmm.
funny you mentioned the sharing, how the shame shrinks when you say it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
The irony is that goes back to finding your passion. So
Mm-hmm.
the element of looking for something to monetize, if you're stuck and you have no idea what you can offer, usually the message is in your mess. The story that
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to tell is the one that's going to make you blow up. It's the one that's
Absolutely.
going to help people relate to you. And we have to stop doing that taboo of I can't tell people where I came from or who I really
Mm-hmm.
am or what I'm feeling, because then everything is superficial, nothing is genuine, nothing can be accomplished. But to your point, there are fire starters out there that are looking at this as the glass half full.
Mm-hmm.
There's things that you cannot change, but your attitude and your energy can affect so many good things, even when it looks like the chips are down. So, really love that.
Absolutely.
Really love that. So, which accomplishment, given that you've done so much and you still have things on the horizon so far, which accomplishment are you the most proud of and why?
I can't. Oh, that's a hard one.
Hey, if you have to rank a couple, that's okay too.
Well, I say if I would, overarching is to be able to empower the women that I have been able to empower. And my thing is just to, overarching is empowering these women to believe in themselves. And whether that's at my studio, because I do the same thing, ladies come in and they say, I'm too big, I'm too old, I'm too this, I've never been able to do that. And I'm the coach that's like, girl, we're going to do this. And then I'm able to coach them through that, and they do these things.
Yeah.
And I mean, whether you know it or not, for your audience, if you've never taken a vertical pole fitness class, it can be I never knew this until because I didn't start teaching these classes. I knew nothing about a pole. Long story short, I had an instructor come in. She
Okay.
co-owned a studio in Colorado. She came in and did my certification program, certified my instructors that I already had. And so that's how we started with having pole at my studio. But I would hear like these stories of these girls saying, you just feel so powerful, or when you're climbing the pole, or you're upside down, or you're doing these spins. And I was like, y'all have lost your mind. Until I started taking it, and I realized it's not even about the sexiness or the flipping up on a pole or whatever the case may be. It's overcoming something that you never thought that you were able to do. And I've had ladies in my class cry. I've
Oh,
had my ladies in my class like literally like break down, like, I cannot believe I did this. Since I was in fifth grade, everybody's told me I was too big, I was too
mm,
ugly, I was too this. And if they can do something, and I'm not trying to stereotype anybody, but they feel like I can do something at my size, at the way I look, or whatever, the way that, because some people look at exotic dancers and they're like, they're so beautiful and they
yeah.
do all this stuff, and I can never do that. And they're like, I can do what they can do. And for me to have help them believe in themselves that they can do that, that warms me up. With my speaking and my retreats and my coaching, it's the same thing. It's just that
Mhm.
overarching. These ladies come to me and they're like, I can't do this. And I'm like, no, we will do this. And then when they have that, so that's
Beautiful.
one of my, I mean, that's where I would overarch that. That's my biggest accomplishment, is that been able to turn myself around and turn my challenges into power or a story to tell and help other ladies do that.
Beautiful, beautiful. And, in that I pull out, you don't know what you don't know. Until you try, you never know the effect that you're going to have. And literally just start like this domino effect. It's so interesting too, that sometimes the very thing that we're judging ourselves on is the one thing that once we confront it, opens doors to all these other opportunities. So if we can just conquer this one thing, then once, like you said, the other ladies go, I did that. I can do that. What else can I do? It just elevates you on so many levels. That's great. Curious too, whenever you feel like you're running on empty, what do you do as a reset? How do you get yourself back up?
Nature, that's my jam. So if I'm really feeling like frustrated, if I'm feeling like I need to think or I can't think, or my back's up against the wall or something, I got to get out of nature. That is just, I like to get by water. So if I can, I'm very blessed. I stay in Pensacola, Florida, so we've got beautiful beaches here.
Nice.
We've got water all around us, and then I also love to go like just on the countryside, and even if it's just taking a ride, because I tell people it gives me a chance to think. That's my way of kind of like meditating, and people don't understand that you can literally walk meditate. You can literally just be walking and kind of just being present in that moment kind of helps you clear off of all these other things that you have going on. So that really helps me reset. And sometimes it can take me just going out and doing it for about an hour or two. Some days I tell people all the time, nothing's perfect. So sometimes I get pressured back up against the wall and I do what I call a staycation. So I'm like, I'm getting ready to go on vacation, and they might think I'm somewhere, but really I'm like maybe 45 minutes up the road in a hotel by myself or at an Airbnb or something like that, because I got to reset,
Yes.
so that's what I do. And journaling is definitely my thing. And always before all that, talking to my man upstairs,
Mhm.
so I tell people, I believe I'm not here to preach to you, but I believe you should definitely believe in something higher than you that you can, take those things to and have that conversation when you need to. And then you need to not only have that conversation, whether it's prayer, whether it's however you do it, but also have the time to meditate, to listen to those answers. And that's why even walking or having my staycation, I'm able to kind of, decompress and really hear the answers to what it is I keep asking. So.
Beautiful. Yeah. You've taken us on that whole process of catharsis, epiphany, breakthrough. But the thing is, you can't have any of it until you stand still. So it's okay to hit pause and just let things be. And like you said, to really think things through. Because when you're living on autopilot and going around like a chicken with his head cut off, nothing processes. That's where we get stuck.
Yeah.
So love that. Love that.
Absolutely, because you can't keep running. You have to, just like you said, you have to be still. And that's where I feel like a lot of people. And I did it. I mean, I did it. I really just learned about self-development, I went down a rabbit hole. Then I saw The Secret, and that's all I needed. I just like went straight 100, and I just went down this self-help rabbit hole. So like, I'm just learning all of these things. I'd say 35, maybe 36 years old was when, so I went 36 years just running, hustle, 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 go,
Mm.
go, go. And one of the things is I tell people, we all have that gift. We all have that passion. We all have that talent. And we all might be asking and praying and doing those things. And you got that down pat. But the problem, what I was missing and what we're missing is that time to settle, to
Mm.
be still, so
Mm.
we can hear that, no, you're not supposed to be at this job. You're supposed to be over here starting this business. Oh, no, you're not supposed to be in this relationship. You're supposed to move on to the next thing, or whatever it is that needs to get us to that next step, to whatever it is we're asking for.
Yeah.
We're like, nope, I gotta go to work tomorrow. I gotta worry about the kids. We don't even hear what the answer is there
Yeah.
for us. So that's
Yeah.
where getting in the nature, meditating, doing those things really helps me out.
So powerful. And, just question for retrospect for the listeners out there. If you find that it's hard for you to schedule this downtime, and if you find that you're kind of sabotaging yourself to always be busy, what are you running from? What are you running from? Because the moment that you stand still and you step into who you're supposed to be powerfully, the amazing blessings that come behind that are so, so worth it. But you just got to take the time. And curious too, what would you say, Mia, when it comes to your calling? Do you choose your calling, or does your calling choose you?
Mm, I think your calling chooses you. I think it's always been. I think we were born with that kind of like in us. That's just my take on it. That's what I talk about in my book that I have, How to Discover Your Life's Purpose After 30. That's what I talk about is we were all born with our purpose. You
Mm,
know, it's always been inside of us. But our environment, there's a huge thing that kind of has us hushing, what it is we're supposed to do because it's like, and I always use this example for me, as I tell people, I've always been a talker. Like when you asked me to do the show, I was like, yes, girl, I can do that. Like this is what I do. I do this all the time. But when I was little, and I mean kindergarten, Mia, you're talking too loud. Be quiet. Quit doing. I mean, it was always since and it's like one of those things. Or you could have a kid here who is, you would think he's daydreaming, but maybe he's really thinking about his next invention. And they're like, no, to quit pay attention to what's going on over
yeah.
here. Or somebody, a child that's over here who likes to play in the dirt, and they're like, quit playing in the dirt. That's dirty. That's disgusting. You shouldn't do that. But your calling is to be an archaeologist or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. So I feel like our environment a lot kind of hushes, it's like, nope, got to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So that passion gets hushed. Then, of course, your parents tell you go home. It's the same thing. You might see everybody around you selling drugs. That's how I got. So that's what I ended up doing. Yeah, everybody, at your house is in the medical field. So then you just go into the medical field, but really you didn't want to be in the medical field. So yes, I do believe it's definitely in us. But just like I said, the environment, we go to school, we're molded by everything but what is truly so much noise
Mm,
that is here in this world that was not here back in the day, when we didn't have technology, when
yeah.
we didn't have, I mean, from the time we're born, we're hearing like all these different sounds, these things that we never heard, like this stuff, and it's programming us. So
Yep.
that's where that passion gets hushed. But I do tell people, your passionate throughout your life is going to creep up,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's like an idea, oh, I could do that, like you have an idea of something you could do, or you have a feeling like I should not be doing this, or for some reason you just keep being attracted to a certain, I don't know, a certain school or teaching or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
What happens, just like I said, we don't follow that. We like, I gotta pay the bills, or I gotta go to work tomorrow. I don't have time to be an entrepreneur. I have kids to feed, I have the power bill to pay, and all those things. So it's always in us. It will always creep up.
Mm.
I feel that. It's just, when are you going to take action on it? That's just the thing.
So insightful. Love that. Love that. And what you're saying just speaks volumes, because it's as if life doesn't begin until you listen to the calling.
Hmm.
So if you
Hmm.
want to just experience what it is to be your biggest, baddest self, listen to it,
Hmm.
follow what you're hearing, and prepare to be amazed. Very, very nice. So what are you working
Absolutely.
on? What are you working on? What new projects of yours should we be on the lookout for?
Absolutely. I'm gonna tell y'all. Let me just say this just really quick, just on the
Uh-huh.
back end of that, is that, just for your listeners who are listening, is that when you find that passion, when I tell you, when you get in the flow, like that is your life, it's crazy how your life changes. Because it's like, how the fudge have I been hustling, working two, three jobs,
Yeah.
still not getting ahead? And like now, like my life is, I'll get up, I might go for a walk, I'm checking a couple emails, I do coaching, now, I do work, don't get me wrong, but I'm so in the flow. And I made more money than I ever had. I work way less than I ever have. And it's
Nice.
not just my story. I've seen many people do that. When you're in that flow of your passion and purpose, and what it is you're here for, you don't feel like you're working so hard. I tell people that the difference between action and inspired action. We just take action all our life. We just
Yeah.
hustle. We just are taking action, doing something just to be doing it. But when you take that inspired action, I should make that phone call. I should talk to these people. I should go. Like, those are the things we keep hushing. But when you do that, and it's
Hmm.
like for this event, speaking of what do I have coming up, I have my biggest vision board and brunch women's empowerment event coming up. It's my fourth annual.
Nice.
And this year I wanted to elevate. And I was like, how can I elevate? Something was like, you need to try to get a celebrity speaker.
Mm.
I said, okay, we're going to do that. So I took action. I started Googling, how do you get a celebrity speaker? And I started looking up these speakers. And then I'm very blessed that Lisa Ray Moore is going to be our celebrity speaker for this. And so I was like, Lisa Ray. And then it was, how am I going to get this book? Get her book. And it goes back to asking, how can I? Instead of old Mia would have been like, it costs how much? And I got to do what? And yeah, well, we're not going to, I'll just get up and speak, But now I took the inspired action. It was something popped into my head and was like, you need to reach out to my guy friend of mine, Frank. You need to reach out to him. He's in the industry. Maybe he could help you. Yeah. Literally, I reached out to him. 3-4 days later, I didn't get a celebrity agent. I got Lisa Ray's personal assistant's phone number, and that's how it happens. It's that inspired action that we just shut down on and we don't take. So you got to take those things. So, but yes, so I just wanted to just to clarify that behind that. So definitely taking that action, and just when you get in that flow, it's crazy how things just line up, and it's always been here for us. It's always here for us.
It's just waiting. Yeah. No, I love that. I love that point. I've been having more and more conversations with different ones about their childhood dreams, and I've heard everything from ice cream truck owner to dancer to zoologist, and all these things. And then I ask them, so what happened? And they point out, well, I grew up and I saw that I can't make money doing what I love. And I think that's the biggest injustice of us growing up, to think that for some reason, what makes you happy can't make money, and what makes you money won't make you happy. The key is to find the alignment, to find the thing that meshes and balances both of those, so that, like you said, when you wake up and you do that full day of work, because you're so in flow, it doesn't feel like work. And the amount of abundance behind that.
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't even feel it. It's crazy, but just like, it's here for us. We just got to get out here and just figure it. That's what I tell people. That's almost like the hardest thing, is figuring out what it is that we want to do, and changing that mindset that I can't get paid doing what it is. But I love that challenge, because people tell me that too. I've had ladies who say, and I say, well, what could you do all day and not get paid for? That's one of my biggest. So that's a little writer downer audience, is to write that down and literally answer that. What can you do all day and not get paid for?
Nice.
So I had a couple ladies tell me, she was like, well, if I could do all day, I would just sit by the beach and read books all day. I was like, girl, you know how many editors are out here? How many copywriters are out here? Do you know how many books? Like, people don't think about that.
Yeah.
I had a girl telling me, like, girl, I just want to eat food all day and da-da-da. That's when I'm a foodie myself. I was like, do you know how many 6 to 7-figure food bloggers, travel foodies are out? These people are making great money and they get paid to go and review, and they will give you this food because they want you to review their food that they have and things like that.
Yeah.
But people have those limiting beliefs, and it goes back to they're like, oh, I can't see myself being there. Well, it's not being that Anthony Bourdain foodie traveler right now. No, right now we're going to start local area. We're going to Google. And that's where it's those little things, and that that take you to shut the front door. I am making great money doing this.
Wonderful, love it. And just confession, I actually used you as an example for one the other day when she said, I've always wanted to teach yoga. And she had this self-defeating thought. She's like, but my friends are judging me. Everyone says, how dare you? You're only going to make $15 an hour. And I said, honey, I know someone making 6 figures, rocking yoga studios, and jaw hit the ground. And she's like, huh?
Absolutely.
Again, you just start it. And if you love it, all these doors are going to open up. Yeah.
This should be running yoga retreats and yoga teacher training. I mean, that's how it literally just starts with that first step. You go Martin Luther King, you got to take that first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase. You just take that first step. And that's the problem, is people don't see the end, and they're like, they're just scared to take. And that's the thing. We got to start trusting ourselves. And it goes back to that feeling and that intuition. you have to keep, trusting it. And I love this analogy that I've heard before is even though you can't see the ending, it's just like if I was driving from here to Atlanta at night. I
Mm-hmm.
don't see Atlanta in front of me. I don't even see the next up the highway. I just see kind of like right in whatever my headlight is showing me. But I just know that if I keep following that path, I'm gonna get to Atlanta. you know?
Absolutely.
So that's how you just gotta kind of do, that's what I tell people. You might not see it all, but you just take those first steps, it will open up for you.
Amen. And worse yet, imagine if you never took the first step.
Mm-hmm.
All that you have, all this beauty and fun and abundance and fulfillment that you never get to experience when all you had to do was take the first step. So
Yep.
love that, really love that. And, lately I've been sharing with people that you want to think of life as a journey, like you described. If you get into Atlanta, wherever you're going, life, we're going places. We all are. But are you in the car in the passenger seat? Or wouldn't it be so much better if you could scoot over to the driver's side, take that steering wheel and live in overdrive? Because that's where the magic happens. Just get in the driver's seat. And, Mia, we're going to ask you one more question. It's a bit hypothetical, but if you could go back in time 20 years and you had just 2 minutes to confront your younger self, what are you saying?
I would probably say keep going. Don't give up and just keep going. It's gonna be amazing, girlfriend. Yeah, yep.
Wonderful.
That's what it
Wonderful.
would. Yep. That's what it would be.
Love it. And really, that ends up being a parting gift because we want you
Mm-hmm.
to understand that the next 20 years are going to be even more amazing. So you keep going, and all these fantastic things that are waiting for you will show up. And you'll know it's because you took the first step. You kept going.
Absolutely.
So we are so, so excited you came and joined us today. If anyone in the audience wants to get in touch with you for further development and questions, how do they get in touch?
Absolutely. I do have a free Facebook group. It's Female Entrepreneurs on the Rise. I'd love for you ladies to come over there. I do all type of ladies and gentlemen. I'm not too sure who you speak to on here, but for ladies in my group. So Female Entrepreneurs on the Rise. I do all type of free trainings inside of there. And if you're interested in any of my upcoming women's empowerment retreats, because I also host women empowerment retreats, or if you just want to stay in touch with me, you can go to miaboldencoaching.com.
Beautiful. Well, again, we thank you so much for gracing us with your presence, wishing you nothing but continued success. And to all our amazing listeners, we want to remind you every day is a gift. Treat it like the present that it is. Those that you love, hold them tight, tell them how you feel. And thank you so much for joining us. Until next time.
Bye.
Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to share this video and like, comment, and subscribe. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at New You Well. Until next time, stand tall in your power and remember, your belief in yourself is your superpower.